Viktor Ivanov got married 5 years ago and moved to Siberia with his wife. After living there for 3 years, with its average temperature of -30, they decided that this was going to be their last year in Krasnoyarsk. They looked for somewhere between Siberia, where his wife Irina grew up, and St. Petersburg, where he lived. They finally settled upon Malaga. They decided it would be the perfect place to settle down and start a family. The 8 months of sunshine winter over the 8 months of winter in Russia was the biggest reason for the move. Here they have set up their own estate agency dedicated primarily to renting apartments to Russian buyers and tourists. Mr. Ching Tang came to Spain quite recently for a holiday. He came with his wife and his daughter of 12, after having spent a few days in London and Paris. The incredible economic growth in his country combined with the fact that house prices have in some cases tripled compared to those in Spain, not forgetting as well that you can't own more than one house in China, were reasons enough for them to decide that they would buy a second house in Barcelona. Mikhail Saratov is a 50-year-old Russian businessman who, after traveling around Spain, finally decided to settle in Marbella, and brought over his family. He however, still continued to work in Moscow. He had a flat there in the outskirts. This 50-square-meter flat had cost him €200,000. He lived there from Monday to Thursday, then caught a flight, and 5 hours later he was with his family on the beach sipping a mojito, making plans for the long weekend ahead. The stories of Viktor, Ching and Mikhail are 3 clear cases that the new law for the support of entrepreneurs and internationalization could help.
On September 29 last year, the law for the support of entrepreneurs and internationalization came into force. This law, amongst other things, paves the way for foreign investment and entrepreneurs, and also will allow them to get residence permits and visas of 1 year with the possibility of an extension. The law is quite extensive and includes, amongst other things, a new type of training company for businesses, the arbitration of debts without a judge, a reduction in tax for the reinvestment of profits, a new system for VAT, which means that the self-employed will not have to pay VAT until they have paid any outstanding debts, fiscal incentives for financing, support for social security documents, etc., and it is in the law's 2nd section where the development of internationalization is mentioned. The law will create a procedure to award residence permits, for reasons of economic interest, for investors that make a contribution of significant economic interest or in business projects considered to be in the public or general interest, and also permits for entrepreneurs that establish an activity of an innovative nature with some special economic interest, something that will create jobs, or when the professional profile or the business plan of the applicant will benefit the Spanish economy. This applies equally to the more highly qualified or those that move to Spain to further their professional interests. The people this refers to when it says foreign citizens are investors, highly qualified professionals, directors, graduates and postgraduates, etc. International transfer, entrepreneurs and other business activity. However, as well as the specific requirements set out in this law, those concerned will also have to comply with the general immigration requirements in Spain and have no criminal convictions, health insurance and the resources necessary to support yourself. One must be over 18 years of age, not be an undeclared resident in Spain, or subject to be refused by of the countries with which Spain has such an agreement.
Now we are going to analyze the approval of residence for investors, regulated in Section 2A of the previously mentioned law. According to Article 63, the investment of capital by investors that will help a foreign person to fund a request for residency must comply with the following prerequisites. It must be equal or more than €2 million in bonds of Spanish public debt or more than €1 million in businesses shares from Spanish companies or bank deposits in financial companies, equal to or more than €500,000 for the acquisition of various properties in Spain, count towards a business project that will be developed in Spain and that is accredited as being in general interest, and this should comply with at least one of these conditions. 1. Create new jobs. 2. Carry out an investment of relevant socio-economic interest. 3. Relevant contribution to a scientific or technological innovation. 4. Done through a company that isn't in a tax haven and when the non-native has the majority of the rights for the company. Article 64 lays out how this investment will be accredited. It will be the following. For the investment in shares of public debt or shares in Spanish companies, the investment should be approved within no more than 60 days before the presentation of the request. For the acquisition of property, the approval of the investment should be carried out through the registration certificate with the electronic code for verification. If at the time of the request for residency it is still in the process of registration, the presentation of the certificate will be sufficient if provided with proof of payment. For business projects, one should present some form of valid evidence that the project will be in some general interest.
The visa for investors, according to Article 65, will be valid for at least 1 year. Foreign investors that wish to reside in Spain for longer than a year, they will have to be approved by an authorization of residence for investors. For this they must comply with alongside the previous ones. These regulations: 1. Must hold a valid visa and be more than 90 days from its expiration. Travel to Spain at least once during the authorized period of residency. If you have made an investment, it must be shown that you have maintained it. In the case of having bought any property, one must certify that you are still in possession of the same registration certificate for the property. For those who have invested in a business project, they must confirm that there is still some general interest in the company. The initial authorization for investors will last 2 years, in which it will be possible to request another 2 years. The visas will be issued by the consular office in Spain, who will respond to request within 10 working days. Except for those who submitted their requests at the consulate beforehand. Article 22 Code for Visas. The authorization of residence will be processed by the Corporation for Big Business in Strategy on behalf of the Directorate for Migration. The maximum time for its completion will be 20 days. If it is not completed in the stated time, one must consider it as unaccepted. In BUMS Abogados we have a team of lawyers specializing in immigration law, and our management company, Tramura, is responsible for handling all types of residential and nationalities, with highly qualified and constantly training people. We will be happy to help.